Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the 1% Better podcast with your host, Josh Williams. So happy to be here today, rocking in the studio, which happens to be a room in the basement. Exciting. So, have you ever been in this place where you feel like you're trying and you might get results, you might not? You're just kind of going up and down, all around, but at the end of the day, you're roughly staying in the same place. And a lot of times we call that a plateau, right? So we'll see this a lot in weight. Weight's easy to track. It's something you can just step on a scale each day and be like, okay, I'm here, versus there. So that's probably the most common area that we'll see this and hear this, where I'm trying to eat better. I'm trying to move more. I'll lose a couple pounds and I'll rebound back up. And we've been there. I've been there before. And a lot of times we'll call this a plateau and like we're feeling stuck. But the reality is we're not actually at a plateau. A plateau is, by definition, meaning everything is being controlled and staying the same, meaning the amount of calories that I'm eating are the same day to day, week to week. The amount of activity that I'm doing is the same day to day, week to week. My sleep is the same day to day, week to week. And you're in a plateau if, again, your activities, your sleep, your nutrition is all about the same day to day, week to week, and it doesn't move anything for 3 or 4 weeks. That is a plateau. You are in pure maintenance mode, which can be excellent. But when we're trying to get somewhere, that can be really frustrating. So we'll call this a plateau. I'm stuck, nothing I'm doing. And in reality, what we're actually in is what we call a pattern lock. We are locked in this pattern where we might have, 2 to 3 days where we string together, consistent activity, sleep, nutrition, sodium levels, all of that. And we'll see the scale drop a pound or two. And then our schedule change. We get less sleep, we have a high sodium, we don't track what we're eating, and then we'll see this weight rebound. And so we're kind of in this constant fluctuation, maybe of 5 pounds, 8 pounds, 2 pounds, whatnot. If we see that happening, that is not a plateau. A plateau is consistently being at the same weight, doing the same thing. Now, a pattern lock, again, if I'm adhering to what I know is going to get me results for 2 to 3 days, and I see a change, but then it bounces back, that is not a plateau. That is, we are stuck in a cycle of being consistent. The weight moves, and then for some reason, we revert back to the old way, and it goes right back. And so we can feel like it's a plateau, but we are locked in this cycle. And so how to break this cycle? And the reason I bring this up is a plateau can feel very defeating. You're like, man, I'm never going to change. But if you're doing the steps and the days that you're doing them, you're seeing results, it's working. You're not stuck. And there is a relief in that. The hard part is there's no magic bullet. The magic bullet's going to be consistency. How do I get consistent? How do I go from 2 to 3 days consistent to bring it up to 4, 5, 6, 7 days consistent to really get those compounding effects of results? And that really comes down to, particularly when we're talking about nutrition, just planning your day. Not getting confident where it's like, no, I'm good. I know what to eat. If I had the same breakfast, roughly the same lunch, roughly the same dinner, I'm going to be good. But getting consistent with tracking or just planning out the day, knowing, hey, for breakfast, I'm going to have this. For lunch, I'm going to have this. For a snack, I'm going to have this. For dinner, I'm going to have this. And the more that you can do that at the end of your day, the more consistent you're going to be. And the same with activity. Well, I have a pretty busy day today. I have a lot of meetings, or I'm at work, or I'm watching the kids, whatnot. I can probably get 30 minutes of this in. That could be stretching, that could be walk, that could be, anything for activity. And then also planning bedtime. Hey, I want to go to bed at this time, wake up in this hour. This sounds overly simplistic. I know it's a challenge, but at the end of the day, one of the most valuable things we can do is plan out the next day. What this allows us to do is to break that pattern lock to get that long-term success. And so at the end of the day, especially if your goal is weight loss, the consistency is going to be huge. And why do we kind of get stuck in these pattern locks? Well, we might find that maybe the beginning of the week, we're able to stay consistent. We came off a weekend, we're motivated to lock in now, like, oh, my weight's really high. So you lock it in for those 2 or 3 days, but then the end of the week gets crazy. You start slacking on the sleep a little bit. You start, not drinking as much water, eating some more high sodium on the run kind of things. And then we get back into that cycle of the pattern. And so to break the pattern, specifically talking about weight loss, the nutritional consistency is always going to beat everything else. So if I'm like, man, it's really hard to hit my sleep, it's really hard to hit, my exercise all the time. If the main goal is to lose weight, then locking in on that nutrition as many days of the week is going to be the biggest lever. So what is that going to look like? It's going to be hitting your protein, so getting high protein in. Why? It preserves muscle mass, which is active tissue, as well as it's the most filling as well. And it has the least amount of calories per gram of protein. So again, something like 50 grams of protein is going to be potentially, 200 to 300 calories, and it's going to be very heavy. So it's going to be very filling. It's also going to preserve that muscle. So getting the high protein, for most people, you're going to want to be aiming, the 30 plus grams a meal. So that's going to leave you right around 100 to 120 per day. Again, calorie predictability. So that comes back to planning the day. Can I predictably be in this range of calories? It's going to be huge. So once I have my protein in, I'm getting that 30 grams a meal. Then I want to do calorie predictability and then also controlling sodium. Sodium is going to have a huge effect, especially if we are just using the scale as our barometer, because a high sodium food, high salted, this and that is going to lead to water retention and a spike in weight. So we want to control sodium. And then again, we're trying to control those rebound days where we could string those days consistently and then bounce back with a high calorie day. Again, it can be planning drops then is typically where I see my clients and in myself is you get this false sense of confidence after stringing, 2-3 days in a row, and you stop doing the basics of planning the next day. So again, you don't have to track food all the time. I always say that is beneficial, but the bigger thing and less time consuming is planning of the next day. Like, what are you going to have to eat? Where are you going to have to eat? What does my day look like? Am I going to be traveling, driving? What am I doing for that? Because the more you know your plan, the more you can stick to it at the end of the day. So that's what I had today. Realize the difference of, are you in a plateau or are you in a pattern lock? Again, plateau is you're doing everything consistently. Nothing has changed. You're day in, day out, hitting your marks, and the needle has not moved for 3 to 4 weeks. That is a plateau. For many of us, I imagine we are in what we call a pattern lock, where we're consistent 2 to 3 days, we see the needle move, and then we go back to our old pattern and we bounce back and forth and back and forth. And that is what we call a pattern lock. Again, to break that pattern, number one is going to be plan the day ahead. Get your protein in. With that planning, you should be able to control calories. Make sure you're drinking plenty of water, and then controlling the sodium as well. And as a third bonus, of course, always trying to be active every day as well. So that's what I got for you. I'll hopefully find some solace in that. I know that was a relief working with some clients. You're not stuck. You're actually, the changes you're doing are getting you results. We just need to do them more consistently. Let's try to break that pattern. So again, have a wonderful week. It was great speaking with you all. And if you need help, we are here for you at Sprawling Fitness to provide the support, accountability, the know-how to get you where you want to go on your fitness journey. Have a wonderful day and adios.